right, hey there you guys. So we are here to talk about the annotated bibliography right now. So we're going to talk about what it is, what are the requirements. We're also going to talk about why am I assigning it to you? Why is it part of this research paper project? Okay, now the first thing that you have to do for an annotated bibliography is you have to choose your primary source. Okay, I showed you how to do that in a previous video, but essentially you just go onto our Blackboard page, you see the menu on the left-hand side, and there's a primary source list. That's it. Okay, you look on there, that's not an exhaustive list. Like I said previously, those are the sources that I could provide for you without infringing on copyright. But if there's other sources out there that interest you, that you know you can find source material on, or you just do a quick search on Galileo, you can see that there's a lot of hits, then most likely that's going to be great. All right, so when you do that, so you choose your primary source, you submit that to me by January 15th. Okay, and then I'll double check, make sure everything's all good. If you choose one from the list, then you know they'll be approved. But if you choose one from outside the list, double check, make sure that I approve it, and then we are good to hit the ground running. The next thing that we do over the next 2 weeks in terms of the research paper is we read the primary source. All right, so the thing you want to keep in mind, you know, some people read slow, some people read fast. If you know you're a little bit of a slow reader or you don't have much time to allocate to doing something like this, then you may want to see about choosing a shorter primary source. Now, after you read your primary source, the next thing that you do is you create your research paper proposal. Okay, now this research paper proposal is due on January 29th. And in it, essentially, you just outline something that you may want to argue. Now, of course, this can change. Right? We haven't read any source material about the novel yet. We haven't dug really deeply into the types of analyses that people have done. And so, you know, we can't expect it to be argument ready, research paper ready right out of the gate. Otherwise, why would we do research? Okay, so just use those ideas that you kind of have in your mind as a baseline for going forward. All right, so once we've submitted our research paper proposal, we want to think of, you know, some keywords and things like that that we can use to search for sources. All right, and how many secondary sources do we need for this particular assignment, right? The research paper calls for 6 secondary sources. All right, so you want to make sure that you found all 6 by February 5th, you know, that you think you'll want to use, okay? Remember, everything that we do in terms of these projects is a work in progress. So if you ever want to tweak something, change something, swap a source out, you're always able to do that. But in terms of the annotated bibliography, you're going to submit that works cited page on February 5th, right? And it's essentially saying, these are the sources I think I'm going to use for my annotated bibliography. And then if you need to change them, you change them. Okay, now the works cited page, why do I have you turn it in? Well, we have to have a works cited page in just about every major assignment that we have in this class, some less major assignments. And what I want to make sure that you do is you have the works cited page correct right at the beginning. Because if you have that, then guess what? That's just a copy and paste game. All right, you just move it into your other document, make sure that your formatting has lined up, you know, you haven't lost any italics or commas or quotation marks anywhere. And then you're good. All right, so get it right early, and then you don't have to worry about it every time. Use that as a time-saving opportunity, okay? Then, the next assignment that we have, we're really digging into the annotation part of the annotated bibliography now. One source annotation that's due on February 12th. Okay, now it's time to talk about exactly what an annotation is. An annotation is going to be composed of 3 parts. One is the works cited citation for the particular source. And then the other 2 are paragraphs that outline different parts of the source. The first paragraph of your annotation is going to be a summary of the source, but it's going to be a summary that uses specific information that you can reference. Now, if you look at the sample, you'll notice that except for like the first sentence of each annotation that I've posted on there, you'll see that everything has an in-text citation. And the reason for that is whether I'm using a paraphrase or I'm using a quotation, I'm referencing where that information comes from. If it didn't come from my mind, then it needs a citation. Now, that does 2 things, okay? 2, 1 on each hand, or we can do 2 and do, we've got these 2 reasons. The first reason is so that you're not plagiarizing. The second reason is so that in the future, when you look back at this annotated bibliography, Because if you do this research thing right and you want to save yourself time in the future, you will look back at this annotated bibliography, but you'll be able to see exactly where these ideas are from in your sources. How many of you, as you've been doing research, or even when you were maybe back in high school and you were studying for a test, would think, okay, I remember this piece of information was on the page that had the picture that looked like this, whatever, all these signifiers, and you say, okay, I think it was on the bottom left-hand corner of that page. You flip to that page, and you know what? It's not there. That happens in other types of research as well, and you know what? There is nothing worse than feeling like you're on a time crunch, flipping through pages, okay? Or scrolling through pages, because this is no longer the, early 2000s when everything was on paper. So, you want to make sure that you're giving yourself the opportunity to save time later. If you cite specific references in your annotated bibliography, then you don't need to go dig around in your source to find those references. You can just say, oh, this was on page 5. I wonder if there was any other cool material about this point on page 5 that I want to look at to use in my paper, now that I've refined my ideas even further. Okay, so that is that first paragraph, right? A specific summary about major points in that essay or that article or whatever you want to call it. Articles are essentially just long essays that get published. So, you've got this major tool, but how do you know what types of things you want to pull from your source and include in there? Well, you choose things that seem to line up with your ideas. If something resonates with you, you feel like you might use it in an argument, you feel like it can back up something that you're thinking, well then include that, right? Choose only the most relevant material. So that way you have this document specifically tailored to your own argument. Instead of focusing on these little details that don't necessarily line up to help you with something in the future. Okay, so that's the first paragraph. Now, the second paragraph is going to be explaining how the ideas in the source interact with your own. And you can reference them by kind of taking their idea and making it a step further, right? Kind of like you would in an essay, explaining why you feel like this is beneficial to your argument, how it links into what you're thinking, right? That's a step toward your final project, right? Your final research paper, okay? So you want to keep that in mind, that you've got this opportunity to show how the source material is linking to your own ideas. All right, and then in that same paragraph, you want to just indicate how you know the source is scholarly. All of our sources need to be scholarly, and I just want to see that you know why they're scholarly. And let me just give you a clue here. It's not because Galileo said so. All right, Galileo's great. It does help filter out things that are not scholarly, but you have to dig deep sometimes to figure out exactly why a source is scholarly. Okay, now each of those paragraphs for the one source annotation and the full annotated bibliography are going to be 4 to 6 sentences in length. Okay, that way you can make sure that you have the most amount of relevant information there to benefit you for the future. That's what you need. For each annotation, one source annotation and the annotated bibliography, you need those 2 paragraphs, one for the summary and another for showing how your source is interacting with your own ideas and how you know the source is scholarly. All right, then, okay, we'll move on from that one source annotation where you just need that one source to the actual annotated bibliography, right, that full final product. That's going to be due on February 19th, and in that you have to list all 6 sources that you've read. Then there's 2 body paragraphs for each, right? So it's going to be the same formatting. Check out the sample, you'll be able to see it, but each one goes citation, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, citation, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, and so on until you hit the 6. Right? The annotated bibliography final assignment needs a works cited page at the end as well that contains all your citations. Again, this is just another way to double check that your citations are correct before we move on, because we really want to hammer out any issues we have with formatting right away, so that way we don't have those issues in the future. All right, so that works cited page is going to contain your 6 scholarly sources in alphabetical order, and you know what? You're also going to put your primary source in there too. Because even if you don't directly reference your primary source, this whole annotated bibliography is surrounding your primary source. So it needs to be on there too. All right, so that is essentially the annotated bibliography assignment in a nutshell. And if you have any questions about it, please just let me know. Send me an email. My email address is kgocinski@gwinnettech.edu, so let me know. Until then, have a wonderful rest of your day, do great things, and I will see you next time.